Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the TradeStation Masterclass. For those that are new to the TradeStation webinar series that we titled Masterclass, this is an opportunity for us to dive deeper into TradeStation's technology and see what the potential of the TradeStation desktop is. My name is Jesus Nava. I am the Director of Client Training and Education for TradeStation Securities. And this is a Leveraging EasyLanguage class. If you haven't heard of EasyLanguage, EasyLanguage is TradeStation's proprietary programming language that allows you to customize indicators and strategies and make the platform that you want for yourself. And today's title is Quantify Market Events and Trade Signals with EasyLanguage. It's looking at TradeStation's way of programming certain indicators for you to keep track of certain events and conditions as they happen in history. So we're going to take a look at a couple of examples just to drive in that idea and understand it fully. Before I get started, the usual disclosures, just keep in mind that every symbol and idea that I talk about is for educational purposes only, that these are not recommendations of TradeStation. Also, that active trading is not suitable for everyone, and that past historical performance is no guarantee of future results. I'm glad that everyone is here. If you need additional information on these disclosures, go to www.tradestation.com/important-information. Thank you for taking time and joining me in today's class. By the way, this class is something that we did a couple weeks ago. By error, we scheduled it again. So you probably, if you've been to all my classes, you probably saw that this is a title that looked a little bit familiar. It happened to me yesterday. I said, I think I've done this class before. and I did. But it doesn't matter, because today we're probably going to look at another example and work on it together. Because the more you do something, the more or the easier it becomes. I know that EasyLanguage, even though it's called easy, it does have its complexities. It does have its intricacies. And it's important that if we're interested in customizing TradeStation and customizing indicators and strategies, that we practice a lot. So it's okay if we have to repeat this topic, as long as we provide another example of things that you can do in EasyLanguage. Okay, let's go ahead and jump over here to the content. I believe this PowerPoint talks about how to keep track of events that happen in a chart. We're going to take a look at an example, and we're going to set the scenarios to see if it's something that you would want to do. Variables is a container that is used in EasyLanguage to contain a formula or a value. And we can use that variable throughout the language just to reference that specific value or that specific formula. We're going to use it as a counter, and the variable, we're going to reset it when a specific event happens. The way that the counter works is that it's going to count every bar passes in time, whether that bar is a daily bar or a 5-minute bar, and count them so that when the alert happens, the counter will be reset. Now it's going to reset the alert to 0. And from that moment on, it'll count the number of bars, which means that you'll have a variable that will tell you how many bars ago a certain alert or a certain condition happened, which is very interesting, because a lot of times we're going to want to use these counters to keep track of specific market events. Here's the syntax, or an example of a syntax that keeps track of a counter. First of all is the declaration of the counter name itself. So here's the variable declaration statement. This is a way for you to tell EasyLanguage which words you're going to want to use within the code. Here's one. It's called higher high count. It's a made-up word, but we're declaring it so that it exists in the language. That variable is being initialized as a numeric variable. How do we know that? Because there's a 0 inside parentheses. And that's the way that the variable is initialized. That's just telling EasyLanguage, hey, whatever calculation we're going to create is going to return a number, and the variable is going to hold that number. And that's our counter. Now notice the condition here. If high is greater than the high 1 bar ago, this means 1 bar ago, then higher high count equals higher high count plus 1. So anytime that the condition is true, then we're going to count 1. Interesting, right? Else, higher high count 0. So notice how this syntax right here includes the resetting at the same time. So as long as the high is higher than the high 1 bar ago, it'll add 1 to the counter, +1. But when the condition is not true, then it'll reset the counter to 0. So this will tell you, this will let you know how long ago we had a higher high than the previous bar, which is a very interesting concept. Let's take a look at another syntax here. If higher high count is greater than 0, then we're going to plot that counter. This just keeps track of how many higher highs you've had in a sequence. It's interesting. It's an interesting concept. I've seen indicators that are called maybe streak, so that you can keep track of securities that are probably increasing in price or decreasing in price. So it's how many consecutive highs or consecutive, I'm talking about consecutive higher highs or consecutive lower lows are there in any security. You can use a counter to set it up and maybe rank symbols and have a way of determining, which securities are increasing or decreasing as the time passes. Counting bars to track signals. This is another way in which you can use this syntax. Here's an example. Crossbars ago plus equals 1 is the same thing as saying crossbars ago equals crossbars ago plus 1. So the syntax is the same than the one we saw earlier, where it increments the counter by 1. But this, if MACDIF crosses over 0, then crossbars go equals 0. And if it crosses under 0, then crossbars ago equals 0. Let me go here to the previous one. There we go. So that's the syntax. Anytime that the condition happens, it resets the counter to 0. So at any given moment in the chart, you can say, what is my bar counter? If it's 3 or it's 4, it's telling you how many bars ago this condition happened. So these are 2 examples in which you can keep track of things that have happened and plot them on the chart, either as a way of the first example that we saw, that how many times has this happened, or how long ago has something happened, like in this MACDIF cross over 0. So we're going to use a similar concept in a custom study. This is something that I don't have prepared. As I told you, this is a class that I did a couple of weeks ago, and we repeated it again. And we're just going to work on a different example. Okay, so hopefully this is something that you've probably wanted to do in your own analysis. And let's go ahead and set the scenario for it. I'm going to go over here to my TradeStation platform. All right, this is a 30-minute chart of Microsoft. I believe I have 1 year worth of data. Let me go ahead and confirm. Let me go here to settings. And you can see that, yeah, this is a 30-minute chart and it's going back 1 year. Okay, I'm going to add a strategy. Let's go ahead and add the study first. I'm going to add the Bollinger Band, by the way. This is just based on Bollinger Band and RSI. So let's go ahead and add the 2 studies and combine it with an RSI. So Bollinger Bands, click OK. Okay, that's how the Bollinger Bands look. Let me go to studies and add another one, which is the RSI. All right, here's the RSI. So 2 technical analysis, 2 technical indicators, they calculate differently and they plot on the chart differently. Let's suppose that you want to design a strategy around these 2 concepts and look at the Bollinger Band signals, but also look at the RSI signals. One of the challenges that we have in a strategy like this is that the crossovers are not going to align perfectly on the same bar many times. In fact, it is very unlikely that the Bollinger Band signal and the RSI signal are triggered on exactly the same bar, because you can create a strategy that does that. I want to have alignment between the Bollinger Bands and the RSI, but also keep in mind that it's very tough to get those 2 signals on the same bar. So we're going to use the counter to keep track of how long ago a particular signal has happened. And if the signal has happened within a specific number of bars, then we're going to take that as a signal to trade, because maybe the Bollinger Band and the RSI signal are only off by maybe 5 or 6 or 7 bars. They may be not very far away from each other. And I, as a trader, would say, well, since they're not so far away and apart from each other, I'm going to consider that alignment between the 2 signals. as we understand technical analysis, the more our technical indicators are aligned, the stronger the signal becomes. So that's the idea here, trying to make two totally different technical indicators align so that we have a trade. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the performance of each one of these strategies individually and how a combined strategy performs differently. So let me go ahead and first of all start with the Bollinger Band. Let's take a look. I'm going to go to Studies, Add Strategy, and I'm going to add the Bollinger Band strategy out of the box. This is not something custom. This is just out of the box. I'm going to add the two Bollinger Band strategy components. Remember that one is the long entry and the other one is a short entry. So the strategy will flip you back and forth between long and short. You're always in a trade. And here we go. We have the signals of the Bollinger Band on the chart. One thing that I want to note is if you're not familiar with the Bollinger Band is looking for extremes. And whenever the price activity goes outside the Bollinger Bands, it said that the price has reached an extreme and is likely to come inside the Bollinger Band channel again. That event, when the price activity comes inside the channel, that is what the Bollinger Band considers a signal. And the strategy is pretty much based on that. Anytime that you see an extreme in price activity and the price is coming back inside the channel, it's a trade signal. If it happens on the upper band, it's a short signal because it's likely that the price will come back to the average, which is in the opposite direction, would be to the bottom. So it's a short entry. And at the bottom side, it'll take a long trade because it'll think that the prices will bounce and go up in the opposite direction. Okay, that's in a nutshell the basic signal of a Bollinger Band. The RSI right here at the bottom is very similar. The RSI monitors overbought and oversold levels, but it's not when the price activity reaches an overbought or reaches an oversold level. No, the signal is generated when it's coming back inside the RSI channel. So whenever the security has been overbought or oversold and then returns to a state that is not oversold or overbought. Does that make sense? So we're going to try to mold or kind of combine these two strategies into one, okay? Okay. In here, let's go ahead and take a look at the performance of the Bollinger Band strategy server. I'm going to go here to Data and go to Strategy Performance Report. Okay. Looking at the Bollinger Band strategy, we can see that it is, if it looks at all the trades that were generated last year, we have a positive net profit. So we have $12,000. The profit factor is not as high as I would have expected or I would have liked. A 1.67 profit factor just means that you're making $1.67 for every dollar that you're losing. So there's not much of a profit factor here, although it is still positive. If we scroll down here, we have a total of 67 trades, and 67% of my trades in this Bollinger Band strategy are profitable. All right, so we have 45 winning trades and 22 losing trades. All right, perfect. That's the Bollinger Band strategy by itself. I don't have any risk management, no profit targets, no stop losses. Let's go ahead and take a look at the RSI strategy. I'm going to come over here to Studies and add the strategy. I'm leaving the strategy performance report in the background opened because you're going to see that as you make changes to the strategy performance report should update automatically. So in this example, let me go here to the RSI strategies, and I'm going to add the two that are here on the chart, the RSI, LE, and SE, short entry and long entry, and put them on the chart. Okay, so by adding the RSI, you can see that my profit factor increased. Now I'm at 2.12. So for every dollar that I lose, I make $2. A better ratio, profit and loss ratio. My net profit is a little bit higher. The number of trades, still pretty significant. You know, we have, how many trades do we have here? 70 trades, and 71 of those trades were profitable. So it may seem that we just combined two strategies and now they're kind of working together, when in reality, they're not. They're pretty much independent from each other. Even though we did add them both to the chart, Bollinger Band and RSI are both inside of this chart. You can see that I have signals that have the name BB Band or B Band. That's the Bollinger Band, but I also have other signals here that have a label RSI. So they're kind of working together, but not combined. They are independent. So whenever the criteria of either one gets hit, it's going to generate a signal. And what we're trying to create here is a strategy where it's looking for alignment. If both the Bollinger Band and the RSI are generating signals within a specific time frame, then we want to take that trade. So what do you say we combine these two strategies into one, or try to, and see if we make something different than what it's displayed over here? So because that'd be a very interesting test. The Bollinger Band gave us positive results. The RSI seem to have improved our performance report, but they're independent from each other. They're not combined. So let's go ahead and combine them and see how it affects the result. Let me go here to the development environment. So I'm going to go here to apps and click on EasyLanguage. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for those specific strategies and open up my EasyLanguage code. Let me go ahead and close what's available here so that we can start from scratch. This is my output bar. Let me go ahead and let's go ahead and open up the Bollinger Band strategy. Let me go here to open. Okay. And I'm going to go here to the strategy category and let me open up Bollinger Bands. Where's Bollinger Bands? These are in alphabetical order. Here's the Bollinger Bands LE and the SE. Both conditions are pretty similar. So I'm just going to open up the LE and see if I can build my strategy from those conditions. Okay. The Bollinger Band code, when you first open it, it may seem a little bit overwhelming, but I like to say, there's a lot of text going on here. I probably don't need all this text. I like to simplify my code so that it makes sense in my mind and I don't have a lot of clutter. So that's my approach to EasyLanguage. So even though it may seem overwhelming when you first open up the code, there's a few things here that I don't need and I'm going to get out of my code. Before I do that, give me just a moment. All right. What I'm going to do is let me copy most of this and then I'm going to paste it into my own strategy, and then I'll clean it up. Okay. I don't want to mess up with the original code. I'm just going to come here to File, New, Strategy. And this strategy that I'm going to create is going to be called @MC. And let's call this Bollinger RSI strategy. Okay, perfect. I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to paste the code in here. Okay, so we are going to make some edits here and clean up the code and remove some of the things that we don't need. All right. And some of the things that I don't need, for example, are some of the descriptions of the inputs and variables. Let me go ahead and remove some of this information. All right. Because this information is not needed for my code. I just need a declaration of my inputs without all this information. So let me go ahead and remove it. Okay. And that way I can just focus on the things that I need. This is my variable. Okay. That's the lower band. I'm also going to need the code for the upper band. So this is a Bollinger Band price test price band. So I may need a little bit more code than the LE, but that's okay. Let me remove this note here and let me remove the copyright. And let me look at, I looked at the LE strategy. Let me go ahead and look at the SE strategy. Okay, just one moment. All right, in here, I'm just going to go here to Bollinger SE. I'm going to open it. All right, so from here, I'm just going to select the upper band code, which I need as well. I'm just going to paste it here. So these are my variables. All right. And I also need the calculation, right? So let's go here to my strategy and I need the upper band calculation as well. So now this is taking a different shape because now I'm calculating the lower band and the upper band. Let's see. This is the condition for the long entry. And let's copy the condition for the short entry. Okay, there we go. Crosses under and crosses over. Now, to set the counters, and I'm going to set the counter up here as a variable. That's something that we saw in the example that we saw inside of the PowerPoint. I'm going to set a Bollinger count, and I'm going to set that to 0. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Now, I haven't even introduced the RSI in here, so I'm just working on the Bollinger Band side. In fact, these inputs up here, let me go ahead and organize them in just one single line so that they're easier to read. All right. And from here, let's see. Every time that there's a crossover, one thing that you need to keep in mind is that you need to reset the counter to 0, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to look back and say, how many bars ago did the crossover happen? Because it's important to keep track of that. Now, of course, it may be a little bit more complicated because we're talking about LE and SE, but still, let's go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and do it. So I'm going to do a Bollinger. In fact, let's go ahead and abbreviate this. Ball, LE, count, because I'm going to also look at the short side. Ball, SE, count. Two different variables. Okay, so let's see. So we're going to reset the counters in these when these conditions happen. So I'm going to add the word begin in here because there's two actions that need to happen. You need to do a buy transaction, and then I have to set the ball. This is the long entry strategy. So the LE count equals 0, and then do an end of this begin. This is called an if then begin statement because it allows you to do multiple actions. And let's do the same thing for the short entry. We're going to begin, and when the condition happens, we're going to reset ball SE count to 0. Okay, that's just the Bollinger Band. Now we need to bring in the RSI calculations here. So let me go ahead and close the Bollinger Band strategy, and let me take a look at the RSI strategy. I think I may have, bit a little bit more that I could chew, but let's go ahead and try it here. I know that we have a few more minutes here in class, and I just want to make sure that you see the thought process behind combining two different strategies. Let's go here to the RSI LE. I'm going to take a look at the LE first. Okay, so this is my long entry strategy. I need this inputs variable, and this is my condition for the RSI. Let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to copy my inputs, go back to the strategy that I'm working on. I'm going to paste them here and then clean them up. So the one thing that I'm going to leave this as is. So let me remove this semicolon and change it to a comma because I'm going to add more. I'm going to remove this piece inside square brackets. This is only a tooltips kind of command that I don't need for this strategy. Okay, and I think I brought in my inputs from the RSI strategy. Okay, and the RSI calculation is this. So I need the variables and the calculation. Let's go ahead and do that. Variables and the calculation. I don't need the declaration variables again. I just need to move the RSI value declaration right here to the top. And then I have the assignment right here. RSI value equals RSI price over length. Let me go back here. And this is the syntax that controls the strategy. RSI value crosses over oversold. This is my buy condition right here. Let me put it over here, and then we'll make some combinations. Okay, I'm just trying to piece this code together. I'm just grabbing different pieces from different strategies and combining them into one code. So that's what I need from the long entry. Let me open up the short entry and see what else I need. So this is RSI, short entry. There we go. So from here, I need this overbought. That's all that I need because the price and the length is the same as the short entry. So all I need to bring in is the overbought level. From the strategy, I don't need the variable because that's also the same as the long entry, and the calculation of the RSI is exactly the same. What changes is the order command. So I'm going to copy those two lines and bring them over here to my strategy. Okay. All right. So we created counters for the Bollinger Band. Let's go ahead and create counters for the RSI. So right here in my variables, let me go ahead and create an RSI LE count, that it's a 0, and then I'm going to do an RSI SE count and initialize that to 0. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the two actions, but actually I want to be able to combine the actions because there's only going to be one buy and one sell short, right? The strategy is only going to buy and sell short whenever the two conditions are kind of aligned, right? So if current bar is greater than 1 and test price band crosses over Z, okay, so let's go ahead and do some cleaning up here. So take a look at what I'm going to do. I'm going to create to avoid, confusion in the code. I'm going to create some conditions. I'm going to do condition 1. Actually, let's do a custom condition. Oh, Okay, so my computer's running a little bit slow. We're going to do Bollinger condition. Let's see. What I'm trying to do is okay, let's do something here. Maybe I don't need maybe I don't need conditions. What I need to do is whenever the condition is, okay, so maybe what I need to do, so I'm going to use the conditions only to maybe I can use the counters so that they trigger the buy and the sell. So maybe all that I need when the condition is true is to reset the counters. Let me try that. Let me get this order action out of the way, and I'm not going to use the begin here. Let me try something different. So if the condition is true, reset the counter. Okay. So let's remove that begin and remove this end. All right. So I do need a counter for, I set up counters for the RSI. So we're going to replace that in here. RSI LE count equals 0. And for this one, when the overbought happens, RSI SE count. So I think that if I use the counters, I should be able to generate a trade and say, if ball LE count is less than, let's do 5, and RSI LE count is less than 5, then buy next bar at, my computer is running really slow. You can see that I'm typing and it takes a while for it to respond. Let me collapse these 4 resets. So whenever these two are less than 5, then buy next bar at market. And if, let's do the other side. If ball SE count is less than 5 and RSI LE count is less than 5, then sell short next bar at market. Okay, so we have the counters reset here. We just don't have the counters counting yet. So we set the conditions, if they're within proximity of each other, meaning that they've happened within 5 bars, then I want to buy. I think this should work if I spell RSI correctly. But let's go ahead and set the counters up here so that they count. So I need all the counter names. So rather than typing them all out, I'm just going to copy them and paste them here. Okay, so these are my counters. And what I need to do is do the syntax for the counter. Plus equals 1. What you can repeat the counter again. LE count equals ball LE count plus 1, or you can use the short syntax, which is just plus equals 1. And the other one is plus equals 1. And all these need a semicolon at the very end. All right, let me verify this and see all the errors that I generate. Okay, so let's see. This order, okay, because, yeah, we're using length here and we're using length here because the Bollinger Band uses a different length. So I'm going to call this the ball length, and this is the RSI length, which means that for the Bollinger Band calculation, I need to change the length here to ball length. And for the RSI calculation, I need to use RSI length instead. Let's verify. Let's see. Unknown identifier is because I don't have it up here. I have num devs down, but I forgot to define nums dev up, and it's going to be set to 2. Okay, let's verify that one more time. Test price U band. I didn't copy those from the other strategy, so let's go ahead, because there's a test price L band and then test price U band, which is also missing from my inputs. But it's okay. I can add it here, and it's also using the close. Okay, so let me organize my inputs here so that they are seen all together. You verify one more time, and there we go. So I cleaned out all the errors, and let's go ahead and see if this generates any strategies. Let me go back here to my TradeStation. I'm going to share this code with everyone that is here so that we can so that you can play with it on your own TradeStation. And that way you can take a look at what we did and how we combined these 2 strategies. I'm going to remove all the strategy components that I added here, and I'm going to add just a strategy that we created. Add strategy, and I called this strategy add MC Bollinger RSI strategy. I click OK. Okay, I don't have, okay, I do have some signals. No, these are not strategy signals. Those are, so let's take a look at the code and see if I have less than 5 and RSI less than 5. So maybe the alignment, it's a little bit harder. Let me increase that to 10. Maybe this can be set as an input so I don't have to change it on the fly. I'm just doubling the flexibility or adding a little bit more of a buffer. Let's see, let me verify this. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the strategy. I still don't see any signals. So let me go ahead and remove those signals. Okay, so that's gone. Did I add the strategy? Edit strategy. So that's the strategy combined. You can see all the different inputs. Okay, let me close out of this and go back here to the strategy code. So we have the count less, the counters are up here and it's counting. SE, this is supposed to be SE right here, not LE. So I'm sure it's a minor error, but it could be, you know, the one that's blocking the strategy from generating trades. And that's what it was. But I'm not sure if you noticed, but I had LE here. It was a minor error, but I had LE on this condition, which would have been, you know, kind of contradicting. So as soon as I fix that, I can see some signals being generated here on the screen. Let me take a look at how the strategy performed before I do any other changes. Data, strategy performance report. Oh, you can see how the strategy, not a good one. Although I did change, you know, the buffer here to 10, thinking that it was, let me limit this to within 5 bars and see if that makes a difference. If they're happening within 5 bars, I should create this into an input that I can switch back and forth to. Okay, that made it even worse. You know, there's a profit factor of a quarter. So for every dollar that I lose, I make a quarter. Not very nice. So maybe the combination of these two strategies was not such a great idea. But, you know, going through the process of taking these two separate ideas and combining them into one code, I think it's what matters. You know, if I were to create an input out of that, let me see. I'm going to call this input proximity, and I'm going to copy it and replace here. That way I can go here and add an input proximity that I'm going to start off at 5. But adding a proximity input allows me to go back here into TradeStation and say, I'm going to optimize proximity. I'm going to edit strategies, grab my proximity, optimize it, do it from 1 to 10 in increments of 1. Let's see what happens if I do that. It runs through all the tests. And first of all, let's check to see what number it picked. If I go here to the strategies and I customize, notice that it set the proximity to 1. It found that 1 provided the best results. If I go to the strategy performance report, then kind of increased it from a quarter to 0.30, which is not good at all. So yes, I didn't know, what results I was going to get, but it seems like having the strategies run independently from each other, Bollinger Bands and RSI, seem to have worked better for Microsoft over this past year, but combining them was not such a good idea. But again, the concept, the idea here of taking different EasyLanguage codes, grabbing the pieces that you'd like to use and combining them into your own strategy is what this exercise is all about. So this is it. This is my programming class. Feel free to reach out for any questions. Let me go ahead and share the email address that you can use. That way you can just reach out if you need anything, okay? Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. I am going to share the code with everyone that registered for the class or attended the class. So stay tuned. I'll have your email address. So I'll reach out and send it to you right away so that you can use it as an exercise. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Check out the events calendar for what's coming up, okay? See you later. Bye-bye.